The IRS is sending out a brand new, never before seen notice to taxpayers who have a balance with the IRS. This is hot off the presses, folks, hot off the government printers on that cheap government paper. We're just seeing this notice go out to our clients for the first time this week. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the IRS letter LT38. In this video, I'm going to tell you what this notice is, why you got this notice, if you got it. Then I'm going to hop on my monitor here and go through the LT38 notice part by part using an actual LT38 that the IRS sent one of our clients. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you what you should do if you received this new letter LT38. So starting from the top, what is this letter LT38? Well, it tells you in big bold letters right at the top here, it is a reminder. Okay, it's a reminder that you have a balance due. Oh, and that the IRS has ways to help you. Yes, the IRS has ways to help you give them money. Oh, isn't that sweet? So why are they sending this reminder? Well, they're sending this reminder because during the pandemic, and what pandemic are we talking about? Are we talking about the Spanish flu? We're talking about the plague of Justinian. No, obviously we're talking about COVID. During COVID, the IRS suspended mailing some collection notices, right, while they continued to process tax returns and correspondence. And you'll remember this. I've shown you this on the channel before. This was the IRS announcement from a couple years ago, almost to the day, about a week off, February 9, 2022. Right, as part. Let me make this big for you guys, actually. As part of ongoing efforts to provide additional help for people during this period, the IRS announced the suspension of more than a dozen additional letters, including the mailing of automated collection notices normally issued when a taxpayer owes tax, right? And the notices when the IRS has no record of a taxpayer filing a tax return. Because, you know, we've been hearing it from so many folks lately. Hey, the IRS hasn't contacted me. I owe them a lot of money, but they haven't really sent me notices in recent memory, or I haven't filed my tax returns. You know, I'm behind on filing, but I haven't really heard from the IRS. Well, yes, that's because the IRS suspended these notices during COVID, right? So this was in February 2022, and there's a list of all the notices down here that were suspended. The major collection notices that they're talking about here is like the CP 501, CP 503, CP 504. In terms of the non-compliance with tax return filings, that's like the CP 529, right? Unfiled tax returns, so those kinds of notices. Okay, so the IRS stopped sending these collection notices. And now with this letter LT38, the IRS is saying, hey, we're back. We're resuming normal operations. Right, it says right here, we are... this resuming normal operations and providing this update on your outstanding balance to help you stay informed. Okay, so they're basically saying, hey guys, we're back. We're gonna start taking collection activity again. You kind of got a nice little break there during COVID, but we got more money. We got, you know, more funding now, and we're back. We're gonna start telling you owe us again and making threatening you know, announcements again. Now, what this notice is saying, right? There's a deadline on this notice, and I'm going to get to it. But before that, I want to point out a nice thing about this notice is it gives you on the front page here the entire amount that the IRS believes you owe it, right? Under amount due, right? So for this particular taxpayer, they owe about $185,000. When we're talking about like other notices that you receive, right, from the IRS, those are typically year by year. And so people come to us with like, you know, a CP 503 or something, or a 501 or CP 14 or CP 504 or something else. It's just for 1 year. And so the taxpayer thinks, oh, I only owe, you know, the $12,000 that I got in this notice. Well, no, that's only for like 2017, bro. Okay. You haven't paid taxes since like the Bush administration. So you actually owe like a whole ton, right? More than on this notice. But the nice thing about the LT38 is it tells the taxpayer the total amount they owe, right? With penalties and interest, with interest and penalties calculated to a date future. Now, this date is important, okay? This on this particular notice, it's February 12th. So that's actually the deadline, and we'll kind of drop down here. Right, so that's the deadline the IRS is giving this taxpayer, right? To pay the full amount due of this amount on or before February 12th in this case, which is 14 days after the date of the notice. So this is a 14-day deadline on this notice, and I think that's a pretty tight deadline because they owe $185,000. Here's another one for another client we got. They only owe $85,000. You'll notice that the notice date was January 29th. But instead of February 12th, like on this notice, it's February 19th. So there's like a 21-day deadline here. And I believe that's because they owe a lower amount of money. Okay, and I've heard other practitioners saying, with their clients with lower balances, the deadline's even longer into the future, right? So basically what this notice is saying is, hey, look, you owe us this money. Pay us this money or enter into some kind of resolution with us by this date in the future, right? And it'll be different depending on your notice. Or what's going to happen? Or more penalties and interest are going to accrue, and we're going to put you back in the collection cycle wherever you were, way back when, before we shut down those collection notices sent out, right? So if you got like a CP 504 notice of intent to levy, like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, before the collection notices stopped, your next notice might literally be, if you don't make this deadline, the final notice of intent to levy, like the LT11, with CDP rights, right? And if you don't respond to that within 30 days or get a resolution within 30 days or request a CDP hearing within 30 days of that notice, then the IRS can start taking your stuff, garnishing your wages, levying your bank account, right? So that's kind of a worst case scenario. But if you were still early in the collection cycle, right, 2 years ago when the IRS stopped sending the collections notices, then you might have a little more time after this date here, this date in the notice, to work out a resolution with the government, right? Okay, so that's what this notice is. Now let's kind of go through it part by part. I kind of already went over this kind of top paragraph here. Obviously this is the total amount the taxpayer owes. Per IRS record, interest and penalties calculated to, that date. Always in your best interest to pay to minimize interest and penalties. Okay, sure. Yeah, technically that's true. Although, obviously you get into some kind of a hardship-based resolution, like an offer in compromise, or CNC, and let the statute run, or even a PPIA, right? A lot of those penalties and interest will just, drop off. Of course, first page down here, here's how to pay what you owe, right? They'd love you to just pay it all off, right? But we know many of you folks out there can't. I mean, this guy certainly can't. He owes $185,000. He doesn't just have that laying around to pay off the IRS. So, that's not always the most feasible option. This part here is telling you how to create your IRS account online. And they have these little QR codes now, right, where you can just like scan it and it'll take you to the website. It tells you the website right here, irs.gov/account. You can see, many of you have an IRS account, but on the IRS account you can see, a breakdown by year of what you owe, review your payment history, access your tax records, and choose to go paperless for certain notices. Obviously, certain notices the IRS is statutorily required to send by certified mail. IRS has options to help you if you can't pay in full. And, I like this part. Like, it's honest. It talks about the offer and compromise program. It talks about temporarily delay collection. This is currently non-collectible or CNC status. And, and pay over time is obviously an installment agreement, right? So these are the major options. Now, the IRS, these aren't like secret programs. No, I mean, the IRS, it's on the IRS's website, these programs, right? Now, the issue that we see when taxpayers, start negotiating this stuff with the IRS themselves, oftentimes the IRS, I don't want to say they'll trick them, but, the IRS they want to be paid as soon as possible, right? Upfront. They would prefer to get all the money right now upfront, right? They don't really want to give you an offer in compromise, right? And they're not going to make it easy. They're not going to tell you, the right answers to give, right, if you're applying for an offer in compromise, right? And sometimes they'll even, if you call them on the phone, they'll like say, oh yeah, you should apply for an offer in compromise, when the taxpayer doesn't even qualify for an offer in compromise. So they submit the offer, it gets rejected, and now the IRS's 10-year collection statute has been extended during the pendency of the offer plus 30 days. That's kind of getting on a sidetrack here. But I'm saying you can't always trust the IRS that they're going to operate in your best interest, right? We see folks, hey, I want to set up a payment plan with you guys. IRS says, okay. And they ask them all the information about their financial situation, right? And they just shot themselves in the foot, because now the IRS knows they have all these, assets they can draw from to pay them back basically now, right? Why should they give them a payment plan, right? If they have all this money in retirement account or things like that, right? And that's where we would come in, negotiate a more reasonable payment arrangement with the IRS as a taxpayer's representative, right? For taxpayers who don't have a ton of money, in the bank laying around or in investment accounts laying around, who are actually facing a hardship by this tax burden, that's where we can come in and say, hey, IRS, they can't afford to pay you this, folks. You got to agree. You got to take something less, or agree to a very low payment plan, like a partial payment installment agreement in the interim. So that's where we would come in. But these aren't like secret like loopholes or things like that. Like these are official IRS programs. That I'm glad that the IRS is telling people about these programs, because they're real and they work if you qualify. Obviously, I have a ton of information on my channel about those programs. Next on page 3 here, billing summary. This breaks down the tax year, and what is owed for each year. So for 2013, this individual owes this, right? And this is the accrued interest and penalties here for the total here. Okay. Let's see. Right. So then it talks about how because they paused the collection notices, the IRS is automatically granting penalty relief for certain failure to pay penalties for tax periods ending December 31st, 2020 and December 31st, 2021. I actually recently made a video about this penalty relief, everything you need to know about it. It is automatic. You don't have to do anything to get it. You can see a link to that video, top right-hand corner of your screen. Then it says, for more information on penalties and interest, you can go to these web pages. You can look at the code sections here. Internal Revenue Code section 6601, this is interest on underpaid tax and or non-paid tax, and 6651 is the code section on the failure to pay penalty and the failure to file penalty, which I've gone over in other videos. Where to find more information? This is like on almost every correspondence from the IRS, right? You can go to this IRS website to learn more about this letter. You can get tax forms and publications here. You can call them here. Good luck getting through. They have a new document upload tool. You can write to them there. Okay. They also talk about Taxpayer Bill of Rights. That's an interesting read. Taxpayer Advocate right now. Man, Taxpayer Advocate, we used to use them sometimes to get stuff through for our clients if ACS, classic example. We submitted an installment agreement petition, right, to ACS, IRS Automated Collections. And, the frontline person okay, all right, this looks pretty good. I'm going to send it up to my manager for approval. And it just sits on the manager's desk. They don't approve it, right? What can we do? We're often not given the manager's name. Okay, we'd go to TAS, Taxpayer Advocate. Hey, can you get involved here? Kind of crack the whip here on this ACS manager to get them to approve this installment agreement or partial payment installment agreement or whatever it is. Oh my gosh, TAS has been horrible lately. They've just been completely unhelpful. I don't know. They're not as helpful as they used to be. Let's just leave it at that. Anyway, okay, let's get back to the notice here. Right, here's more stuff about TAS. I think up here was specifically about low-income taxpayer clinics, right? And this is about kind of TAS in general. And then, of course, at the very end here, they have the payment coupon. If you want to pay in full or make a partial payment, if you can afford to pay, you would send this with your check, right? Payable to U.S. Treasury, write your taxpayer ID number on your payment, right? Couple things about that. I would say before you make some big, look, if you owe the IRS 10 grand and you have $1 million liquid, please don't bother calling us. Okay. Please just pay them off from your wealth. Okay. But if you owe the IRS 50 grand and you have, not that much liquid, to pay them, give us a call before you write them a check. Right. Sometimes even if you can kind of access, some assets to pay him off, sometimes there's still ways we can work it so you can pay him off over time, or even, pay less than you owe. Right. It all depends on your situation. Right. So I would say, look, in this guy's case, he's not going to pay this, $185,000. right, in the next, before February 12th. It's just not happening. Okay. So, so this is now kind of getting to and this is the end of the notice, right? This is the last page. So now we're kind of getting to the part of the video where we're talking about what should you do if you receive an LT38. Well, like I said, if you have more than enough means to pay the tax that you owe, just pay it. We might be able to get some penalty abatement for you, right? So I shouldn't say don't call us up, but sometimes we're able to knock off, some pretty substantial penalties for folks. I mean, we just knocked off it's our biggest one of the year, 2024. Yeah, I posted this on my Twitter the other day. One of my staff told me that she was able to get a penalty abatement for like $66,000, for a client there. I mean, that's just a huge win, right? So, and this was a guy who had means, right, to pay him. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, call us up. We might be able to get some penalty abatement for you, maybe on kind of like a contingency basis. We'll just take a percentage if we, could knock off some penalties for you, right? If we don't get any penalties knocked off, you don't owe, right? That kind of a thing. Which is different than the offer and compromise service or the installment agreement service, partial payment installment agreement service, current non-collectible kind of service. That's kind of a different thing. But I would say, yeah, assess your financial situation. Can you honestly afford to just pay this off? Right. And if you can, the IRS probably isn't going to really cut you that great of a deal. Right. Another option is you can kind of just wait it out. Right. Because this is not like a statutory notice. This notice isn't saying we're going to start, draining your bank account tomorrow. There would have to be another notice after this notice, at least one other notice after this notice, before the IRS takes that step. Right. But the problem's not going away. Okay, so don't wait too long, folks, right? And then finally, the last option, of course, and this is what Choice Tax Relief helps with, is getting to some kind of resolution with the government, right? This is what we do for our clients, right? It could be an installment agreement, partial payment installment agreement, offer and compromise, current non-collectible, some combination of those. And that's what we specialize here at Choice Tax Relief. I have mountains of other videos on my channel devoted to the intricacies of these tax resolution programs, but one that's a great introduction to them. You can see it right here at the top left-hand side of your screen. Kind of goes over all of them at a high level. I also have all of my tax relief videos you can access in the playlist in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. If you want to reach out to us at Choice Tax Relief, there should be a little button popping up right here where you can access our website, fill out the form on our website, or give us a call, 866-8000-TAX. That's 866-8000-829. Thanks so much for watching, folks. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.